All right, we're on. Well, okay, so let's do a little opening ceremony type of thing where we can acknowledge our beings in communion with the entire cosmos, which is what this phenomenon is tickling our nervous systems to be able to do, in my opinion, and not just the only thing, as one thing. So taking a breath. Allowing yourself to feel your breath come into your body and the oxygen and all other life-giving forces that come in with the breath being perfused throughout your body and circulating back through the center, through the heart, receiving all kinds of information, all information from all the different chakras, all the different levels of perception that we inhabit, that we are given a glorious vehicle, an embodiment to be able to perceive and cohere into reality. Letting it all relax and trust in the resurrective initiation that this day is symbolizing. Letting that move up your spine, out through your skin, and pulsing in and out. With gratitude and great love for this amazing experience that we go through here in incarnation, given this opportunity, and now in communion with each other. Another breath. And relaxing and opening eyes if they haven't been open, and coming back together. Hello, hello. So I did put together a little slideshow, just a small collection of slides that we can look at to stimulate this moment and how incredible this particular journey is. And the slides that I chose, I didn't choose them from my head. I chose them by dowsing. And I went through my whole archive, which admittedly doesn't hold absolutely everything in it, but it does hold quite a lot. And I muscle tested which slides to use, and then I put them together. So now I need to share screen. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, hallelujah! Finally found it. All right, so I thought we thought we'd start with this since today is Easter. Do you all know this one? Uh this was on, let me find the information on it. What was
We're
the
seeing your
date here?
screen.
What?
We're seeing your screen with all the little tabs, the little
Yes,
pictures.
it's
Okay, okay.
true.
All right.
So I didn't make a separate uh file about this. I
Okay.
just I just put the photos into a little album,
Okay.
and we so that we could do go through them that way. So we'll do that. Hold on. I'm gonna take that one out. I got a bunch of other stuff here. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, hold on. And sorry. I thought I had closed all of this. Okay. All right. So here we are. Now, sorry for all of that. This photo. the information is on it. Info. There it is. Okay. This was in 2010 at Wickham, July 31st. And it was two crop circles that occurred on opposite sides of the motorway. And I just noticed when I was looking at this photo, this string of dots here that I hadn't actually noticed before. But I'm going to show you these particular crop circles independently. This was one. And it's from this point of view, it's quite um, mysterious. It's very hard to understand what's going on here. But you see these strings of dots on these lines, these vertical lines, and that was one. Let's see. This is the other one. On one side, the heavier set of dots is on this side. On this one, the heavier set of dots is on the opposite side. And what's so fascinating about this particular crop circle set, there it is again, is that when you overlay them, hello, this is moving very slowly, which somebody did this marvelous rendition. This
Wow.
is both the crop circles, and one of them is reversed on top of the other one. And so it's and then the image is blurred, and it ends up looking like the face on the Shroud of Turin, our which conceivably could literally be the face of Jesus as he was being resurrected into a new life, and that it made an imprint onto the shroud within which he was placed. And there's a tremendous amount of study that's been done on that shroud, which is extremely interesting. And and it's as if with these two crop circles that you're seeing the front and the back of the shroud simultaneously. And
Wow.
that, it's been laid out on the fields and at an interesting angle. I don't know what that angle is in relationship to each other, but one of them is pointing directly at the other one that's at a different angle. We'll go back to that and we'll just look at that for a moment. This is moving very slowly. I apologize. Come on, back to the beginning here. Come on. There we go. So this bottom one is pointing at this top one, and this one is angled this way. It actually could be at a 72-degree angle. I don't know. But that would be interesting if it's at a pentagonal angle. 72 degrees makes the star. So this really could be also the offering of the resurrection of Jesus towards the Pentecost, for instance, where we all get to have the enlightenment, or those that are ready receive the enlightenment, as the cycle does its 5 journeys around and creates the Pentecostal star. That
I
would
see that the tram lines are going the same way. Like if you were to turn that top one to where it was, facing the same way as the other one, the tram lines look like they could match.
um these tram lines,
Yeah,
and they're matching what?
that one down there.
This one, these lines?
Yeah, because the top one is sideways, right? They're perpendicular to one another. If you were to turn that one,
Right.
Yeah.
it would switch the tram lines as well.
Huh. Oh,
Huh.
that's an
Yeah.
interesting thought.
Yeah.
Huh. Huh. And then there's this kind of ascension path that's going on over here, which I think is very interesting. And the fact that it's placed on either side of a roadway. Like, traffic our collective traffic is moving through this expression. Anybody want to say anything about their impressions with that? I
Hmm.
find it very provocative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 out here. Interesting.
Hmm.
So
The
cool for Easter morning. I really love it.
I
yeah,
only can I only can add that this road is called M4 and it's between London and Bristol. I don't know if this is any clue for anything.
it's the main road then that moves
Yeah,
out from
yeah,
London.
one of the main motorways in England, yeah.
Uh-huh. So
But
it's heavily trafficked.
yes, always, yeah.
Yeah. Although it doesn't look too trafficked in this picture, which is interesting.
Well, England is not United States, California or San Francisco, you know. This is already maybe this is morning, let's say.
True.
But yeah, the because this is between, I would say, Swindon and Reading, and this is not close to Swindon or not close to Reading. I might be not correct. So this is little bit away from any town, so it wouldn't be traffic jam in this particular place, I would say.
Uh-huh.
But closer to the towns, it could be like traffic jam.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
People usually drive here very, very fast. But usually when you drive on such motorway, you still can see the fields. So if anybody would be there, I think people would see it.
Possibly. It does look like there's tall trees that are in between. Although there is kind of a gap, like right here, it seems, where traffic coming down the freeway,
Mhm.
which I have to remind myself that they're driving in this direction on this side. Um, Conceivably, they could have seen that there was something in the field from here. Yeah, although this would have been a little much harder, I would imagine, to see. So, a clue. It's all a clue. So happy Easter, everyone. That's my start. And there they all are.
What's the date of these
This
circles?
was in 2010, July 31st.
Wow, I've never seen them.
Yeah, the end of July. Is there a cross-quarter holiday that's like August 1st or isn't there one that's right around there? August Samhain or
Yeah,
Sam
yeah. Lunisad.
Lunasa?
Yeah. It's the point between the summer solstice and the autumn equinox,
Aha, right.
beginning August.
Right. Okay. So that's also provocative that, I mean, there's a limitation. Although there's been one now. It's Easter and we've already had one crop circle, which, we will look at for sure. But this to be in the height of summer, and we are being shown the image of the resurrection, basically, in the height of summer.
Well, what's
Hmm.
50 days after that? The Pentecost. When's that?
50 days after Lunasa?
No, after the resurrection.
Oh,
Easter.
after the resurrection. Well, this year or
Well, I mean, would this have landed 50 days after the
oh,
Easter?
no, 50 days would be like less than 2 months.
Okay. And this is April, May, June. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know when Easter was that year, but it changes every year. It's always the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox.
Oh, wow.
So first is spring equinox, then there's the first full moon, and then there's the next Sunday. and that's when Easter. So it's a both a solar and a lunar uh, holiday,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so for instance, let's go on. These are the ones that I dowsed
You just
that we
froze.
should be looking at. So this one was from 2023. These three all have kind of a solar feeling to them. Spring, solar, resurrection. This one was actually came down on May Day in 1998. It was, I think it was May 4th. Well, it says May 4th on here, but I think it was May Day. It was Beltane, a cross
Belgrade.
holiday when this one came down. And this was July 30th in 2016. And this was 2023, June 7th.
Wow.
And, these two being very sunny. And so, yeah, there's that feeling of the sunshine, the sun infusing us, giving us the central image, especially given that the crop circle that has appeared this year, which is this one,
Wow.
uh, so far, it's the sun symbol.
Wow. This is so
Yeah.
beautiful.
So,
Mm.
and like I say, I dowsed which crop circles we should be looking at. And this is what came out. So, any comments, first of all, from just this? Anybody want to add anything at the moment? And then we'll go on to what got doused next.
That's the traditional ring of lotus petals that's around deities when they're depicted
Yes.
in Tibetan, Nepalese, and Indian visual art. So that's very familiar and gorgeous. Hmm.
Yeah.
The top three are all do not have center or identifiable centers.
Thus they would be very hard to actually make in
Yeah,
the field.
and the one right below the one on the right has also got many centers that are not visible.
Right. All of these.
Hmm.
They're very large circles that would be very, very hard to reproduce. I'd been thinking about the sun symbol, which I'll pull out again, this here, meditating on it because it's always a really good meditation. This is the first one of this year, and this one, hold on, that should advance. There we go. This was the last one of 2023, 2 years ago. This was huge. This spans how many tram lines? One, two,
Seven.
three, four,
7.5.
5, 6, 7. Yeah, wow, you knew that, Colleen. Very good. 7 sets of tram lines. It's huge, just absolutely tremendous. This is even larger than one set of tram lines, I think, or I don't know. No, maybe this is about the width of two tram lines, between one and the next. So it could be anywhere from 80 to 100 feet across, just this center ring. And I was meditating on this symbol, which is highly worthy of meditation. And I had felt that the ring was it's not a single thing. It is an infinity of points. It's an infinity of points that are all equidistant from the source, from source. And I think that was why these other ones wanted to come up, that they were very, very important to acknowledge that there's an emanation that comes out from source that emanation is ubiquitous in reality. It is emanating from absolutely everywhere. The singularity is in every point. Marion and I, Marion, who's on here, who's fresh on in the crop circle group, the crop circle interface. So yeah, I wanted to discuss the new name. Hi, Marion.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were listening to the talk that David Martin gave at the Arlington Institute last weekend, and he was talking about the emanation of source through everything and how that's actually to re-identify. I mean, it's almost like that's the resurrection, is to re-identify with that you are source and that you are emanating the entire universe from your own perspective, from exactly where you are, and that you have the potential to do the entire ring conceivably. There probably is some level of consciousness that is the entire ring. Not probably. I'm certain of it, that exists. And we keep getting reminded of that over and over, that source is ubiquitous and shining with great beauty and harmony and crowning and combining with the moon and the sun and all the stars and all of the stars reflecting back in and coming back into relationship with each other and held in some kind of incredibly beautiful graphic
That
harmony.
middle bottom row one is outrageous. It's got dimension to it, and it carries the nine. If there are 3 rows of 9 each, there's some. That's and
This one?
yeah, that's a whole different thing than all the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, this is 6 and 12. This is nines. What was this one? This one
Wow.
is 12. This is 12 and 12. And the five, the crown of five and the solar lunar. It's interesting here. The sun is smaller than the moon.
Hmm.
The moon is the reflect. If you want to call it that. I mean, that it's all interpretation
Mhm.
for sure. And there's, as many interpretations as there are looking at it. So another piece in my meditations recently on all of this is that I was thinking about the squaring of the circle, which so many of these crop circles do. So many of them do. They square the circle, which is the symbolism of um, the equivalency or the ability of the entire cosmos, the infinite realm source to be established into the square reality, into the 3D form, into this level of existence. And that with the squaring of the circle, you also get the harmonization of the sun and the earth, because I don't have that image here. That would have been good to put in. But if anyone has done this, I'm sure many of you have seen that for instance, that the Great Pyramid, the slope angle of the Great Pyramid is goes from the center of the circle that is inscribed in the square to the center of the circle that is above the square, that the point comes out to, that actually that center of the small circle that is above the large circle, which is equivalent actually in scale of the sun and the moon. It's the same scale as the sun and the moon. And that basically it's that the radius of the earth plus the radius of the moon gives you the circle that is equivalent to the square that bounds the circle that is described by the Earth. Did you follow that? It was a lot of words.
Oh.
I'm trying to describe something through 26 letters, as they say, that is visually represented very quickly by a diagram. Um, the limitations of language, but we do our best. So, but that equivalency of the Earth and the Moon, the proportions of the Earth and the Moon allow you to receive the entirety of the universe into this reality in some way, that I'm feeling like that this all it's like it allows you to receive the harmonics of the whole solar system, perhaps the harmonics of the whole cosmos, because we have this equivalency that happens with the relationship of the Earth to Moon. I was kind of stunned with the gift of this, that particular primary, very, very primary graphic of the squaring of the circle, or the circling of the square, which is, probably inside of some of these crop circles somehow. I don't have that out here, but it's probably there. Here, these were the next ones that I pulled up that Dowsing said to pull. Actually, it is in this one. I'm sure of it. It's in this one. The circling of the square, and the ability of with that to actually receive where we are in the universe. It's very expansive for the consciousness to do that. And it's all in harmonic relationship. That's what we want, is that all of our relations actually be in this incredibly beautiful, organized, non-chaos that is actually motivating all of space and time. There's a resurrection.
The laundry is done, Jeremy.
Hello, Olga. Welcome.
Oh, hi, I'm sorry.
No, it's no problem. And to Blythe and everyone else that's come on since that I didn't welcome directly, Judith. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Um, yeah, the profundity of these designs, the profundity of geometry that is stimulating our reception of the cosmos, it just blows me away. Yeah. So, okay, so I'll keep talking here. But if anybody wants to contribute, please do, of course. So in my dowsing, I was surprised that this one then came up. This one, this Pokeball, the Pokemon ball, which is the Pokemon game is very interesting. It's my son used to be very happily playing it with where you capture all of these imaginative mythical creatures that all have powers in different ways, and then you set them up to battle each other, which, I'm not so into that particular part of it. But this is a really interesting image, and interesting that they should use it for that particular game of capturing these magical creatures, imaginary Neptunian kinds of creatures that it's the singularity finding polarity. The first expression of that the one does is it identifies two-ness, it identifies polarity, which is a really important thing to acknowledge in this square reality, in this 3D reality that we're in, that it is stabilized through our fulcrum point in polarity. and being able to feel how these polarities are balancing and playing against each other, perhaps battling, like the Pokemon universe, I don't know. And but also finding harmonic, and that you're being in the center of it. And it's interesting that this center is, it's an extra little sun here. You have center and center, and then the polarity, like, and there's a ring around the whole thing. I guess you would have to have that in order to define this side of the ball. And then there's this extra point out here on this particular crop circle. This was in 2012, which was a singular year, so to speak. And it looks like this line, I'm not sure exactly where this line intersects. It doesn't look like it goes right to the center, but it certainly goes through this point out here. And so the necessity of the oneness coinciding with two-ness, with, recognizing polarity. We're going to get into the tetractys, and then uh, this is that same image in a certain sense in a completely different formation, where you have a polarity that's defined by this folded band, this folded dual band, that really, actually, if you were looking at this from a completely different perspective, this band may be a circle. It's like, if you were looking at it from the underside and looking up into it, this could actually be a circle. Do you follow me?
No.
It's like, uh, looking at something straight on as opposed to vertically. Like here, my hand looks like it's a line. Here, it looks like it's a full hand. Whereas, if you have a circle like this could be folded in, could do all kinds of things. It could look like a line, but from the right perspective, if you just kind of get underneath this, it could look like a circle. Do you follow? Does that make sense? Anyone? No?
No.
It all has to do with perspective. It all
Yeah.
has to do with perspective, and that if these were shapes in space and not 2D flat on the ground, if these were shapes in space and we happen to be at the angle where we're seeing this wave that's going on in it. Whereas if we twisted it, it could look we could perhaps not see those waves, and it could just look like, the waves could be going in and out where we wouldn't see them, and it would just look like a line or a circle or something
Yeah.
else entirely.
You're making my brain hurt.
Well, that's what the crop circles do.
No, it's not the
So,
crop circles.
It's me, huh? I apologize. Ah, anyway. This one, this is taking the two-ness and bringing it into three-ness for sure, which is kind of the resolution of 1, 2, 3, and then 4. This is so similar in a certain way to the last one. How are those bands all folded together? Let's look at them. Let's look at just these two. I wonder if I can do that. Uh, no, I can't get them any bigger on the screen. That's it. Whoops, sorry. We can look at these two together. And the third, the 5, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and actually there's 6 down here. We're going to go there next. 1, 2, so here we have Pentecost, perhaps. the squaring of the circle, the bringing in of the cosmos, and the revelation that that brings. And then from there, this was the final crop circle from last year, which came down in two parts. It first appeared like this at Etchelhampton on August 8th, and then it morphed a few weeks later on August 29th. It became more complex and added these three dots to the ends of all of these dots. And like Jonathan was saying, they look like hands, they look like fingers, coming out, of the circle, something reaching out beyond and touching an infinity. This is the etc. symbol. this, the circle and more, reaching out into perspective, into space, in all directions, basically. Yeah, is this the path of where the resurrection goes from within the 3D consciousness?
Hmm.
That we become available. So yeah, in my invitation that I'm sending out for everyone, I mentioned that we would discuss, the issues the kind of issues that are implied or connected to this phenomenon, like for instance, disclosure, um, contact. What else was on my list? I don't have it written here. Uh, what else is important right now?
Consciousness?
Consciousness. There's also the harmonization of chaos. The difficulties that we're going through, which again, we started off by acknowledging, or I was trying to acknowledge, that the resurrection came at the end of an extreme trial that Jesus and the whole community went through with, the bringing of Jesus into the city, and uh, all of everything that went on, and all of the not seeing of what was going on, that the community was not really perceiving that Jesus was moving towards dying. But Jesus knew, apparently. He knew he was not long for this world. And then going through the trials with everyone trying to pawn it off onto someone else, it's your responsibility, blah blah. And Jesus going through this tremendously difficult crucifixion that no one should have to ever suffer through. And yet that kind of trial and tribulation, somehow, we don't want it to be, we definitely don't want it to be that we have to go through that level of trial and tribulation in order for there to be the resurrection. I guess that's the idea that, not having been raised Christian, I'm coming at this kind of fresh, that I guess that's the idea that that Jesus having died for our sins kind of idea, which is something that I always kind of felt strange about. Like, shouldn't I have responsibility for my sins? That it seems like that should be more the thing. But the level to which he took it, the level to which the suffering was severe, um, perhaps that having been placed into the reality stream of experience, Like I do think that each of us going through our lifetimes, that we're contributing our life experience back to the whole, and that gets fed back in. That's our gift back to the cosmos, is actually the experience that we are having each individually back into the reality. It all gets fed back in as information streams. And that for this particular information stream of the Christ story to have gone in, maybe no one else needs to do it that way because it got done already if we receive it as part of our story. Does that make sense? I've never really, again, not having been Christian, and for those who there, I know, so there's some recovering Catholics on this call. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm enjoying your exploration. It's very, very interesting. And the idea of shouldn't I be responsible for my own self? Well, that is the point, that we are to take it on, and we are to take on our own less than perfect, whatever, sinful self, and and acknowledge it, that the Christ, dying on the cross makes us aware. I mean, that's the idea, that it makes us aware that you actually do need to be responsible for your own path. And okay, I had to do this extremely dramatic thing to wake you up enough to realize that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, and I'll riff off that just to say that, it sounds like that, there's people that talk about the event stream and the universe's desire to experience novelty, and that gets done through each of our experiences, or to say it as you did, that like the living of our life is the giving back of our experience to the whole, right? So there's that. The thing about the crucifixion that has me suspicious at this point, um, um, I don't know. Um, I don't know where the lesson of selflessness and the teaching of human sacrifice come together, and I'm definitely suspicious of the latter and the degree to which we may have been programmed in that way. So I'm definitely floundering, and I'm fine to be floundering, between the one and the other right now. Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my comment.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted to get Jesus down off that cross and let him
Yeah.
enjoy life again.
Well, and just the
Well,
the way that
but you did.
the suffering is what's the word, adore, revered or
Oh, yeah.
encouraged, or we've got, it's, oh good God, I'm so wanting to pull that shit out of my system. Anyway.
Yeah, exalted in some way.
Yeah, thank you, that's the
Yeah.
word, exalted. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
But the point is not the point is not the crucifixion. The
The
point is
point is the resurrection.
the
Is
point
it?
is the resurrection, and we
Yes,
Right.
yes,
all go through our
understood.
trials,
Yes,
and we are eternal beings.
right, right. Thank you for, actually, thank you for that again. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that there's also something, I mean, I have learned in my own journey that being able to open to the extremely mild levels of suffering that I go through, but that are suffering,
Mm.
in comparison, it's like, it's ridiculous, but the levels of suffering that I go through, that we all go through, there's pain, there's confusion, there's betrayal, there's all kinds of things that we all go through. And to be able to bring that back to center, come back to that source is moving through me, through this expression, through this emanation, and that nothing has to be stuck. That's one of the things that I love about these crop circles. They all seem to be moving, and they're always creative. They're always a new expression. Even these two at such different levels of scale. It's the same image, but this one's only spanning 2 levels of crops. This one's in canola, this one's in wheat at the end of the season. It's tremendous, it's huge, and yet it's the same symbol. There's always something new, and that there's some way to allow actually an exaltation of my own suffering, not to celebrate it so much, but to know that that is experience that is not stuck, that is there to be transmuted. There's something. It's the dark substance that is transmuted in alchemy. Is that which we feel as uncomfortable that makes us suffer, so to speak, that's painful. It's meant to be transmuted and allowed you to see. It actually becomes power again once it's out of its constricted um, limitation of expression, that says it is this way and that's how it's going to be. Instead, healing can happen and a transmutation can happen, and there's a glorification actually that happens in reality when all of that energy comes back into, oh, that's part of the universe going towards more harmony in some way. Marion, I'm going to remind you of another thing that David was saying yesterday that, well, we watched the recording, he said it last weekend, but of, uh, oh darn, it slipped my mind. Hold on. Um, Yeah, it was about transmutation in some way, that which is dark can move towards healing, and nothing has to be stuck. We need to recognize the ways that we focus on the crucifixion instead of focusing on the resurrection. Exactly. And that this is a process, and he's not stuck on the cross.
Just a comment, he said something he said about alchemy was it's the transformation of things into their divine order.
That's what it was. That's what I was trying to find. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
And
that the what we think is chaos. I mean, he kept asking the audience, "Are we in a chaotic time? Do you think? What do you think?" And everybody's going, "Well, should I answer yes? Should I answer no? I'm gonna look stupid if I answer one or the other." And which is interesting how we go through our stuff around these things. And David definitely pokes the horse. It's like he pokes the bear. Um, but that we have this idea right now that life is chaotic, and the truth is that this is actually part of a divine order that is reorganizing itself, and that it must perturbate, it must loosen old stuck programs in order to, reorganize into a new harmonic like these.
I can't help but to wonder about reality. Like, what is reality, and how is that being transformed in this process of today? And yeah, it's a big mystery to me, and it almost seems like all of this is part of that reality that we've grown up in our materialistic world.
Where do you go with that? Do you have thought forms that come out of that you ponder?
No, well, just that there's so much discussion about, say, living in an AI world, or, being able to create your own realities and things like that. So it's like, well, what does that mean, and how does one go about that, and how do we get out of ourselves to do that? Is it even possible?
Mm-hmm.
So it's more questions to me than that, but to me, different religions are stories and myths that have been passed down, whether they're true or not, is another reality. So that's kind of what.
Yeah, it certainly does feel like there's a new myth that is being formed or that is going to be formed out of the now moment that
Mhm.
is that probably it probably acknowledges truths that have been ancient and forever and that we've been exposed to and are kind of getting re-educated with as we I mean right now I'm studying the Egyptian stuff and it's like there it's really interesting to be being reinformed by these very ancient ideas of what is the cosmos and who are we within it and what's our right relationship to it. And it certainly seems like right now we're in the midst of a whole new a whole new mythology or understanding like there's so much more that's being included like for instance AI or
Mhm.
contact or new understandings of how of physics, even
Mhm.
things like that. That it's all and the supremacy of consciousness. Actually, that's like really primary. And to have ourselves be open and for the writing of a new story, and that you are not separate from that. Your contribution into that is in my opinion, utterly valid and an exquisite element to be included. Like any of these circles, if any of them was missing, the design would not be harmonic.
Mhm.
Just to throw in another comment, if I can go back to Blythe, the way she pointed out that um, the crucifixion wasn't the end of the story, like the resurrection was the end of the story. And honestly, in that moment, sometimes I wonder, maybe the full story is there, but we have emphasized a particular part of it to the degree that another bit gets forgotten. And so, honestly, what happened in that moment for me was that my default went to the crucifixion because that's what has been emphasized all along, forgetting the main point, which is actually the resurrection, right? So I just, so it's, and which is the reminder of really more of what and what we are and what we're capable of. So I like the idea of just shifting the emphasis, and that alone can make such a huge difference.
Yeah, a feeling I have is I wish instead of a cross that everybody wears, that it was a symbol of stone,
Of a what?
because the stone rolled away. That
Wow.
got point. The point is the stone rolled away.
Yes,
Just
yes.
came from church, by the way. I came flying back to sign on, so I was a few minutes late. So I had a really very, very nice church experience, and then this is incredibly lovely. But to follow on what you were saying there a bit ago, um, about all of the sort of apparent muddle, new things that seem to be surrounding us. Um, maybe we're in the midst of a crucifixion and
Hmm.
we're going to have a resurrection.
Mhm.
Yeah, to know that that's true.
Hmm.
To know that that's true.
Yeah, the myth, one of the things that keep going referring back to this talk that David Martin gave, but he was debunking all of the physics that we think we know, everything from the first three laws of thermodynamics that he says are all completely erroneous to Einstein, everything that Einstein's, if those laws are erroneous, then, Einstein is, and quantum physics and all of that. It's like in the way, in what he was presenting, it was all erroneous. And what's true is that consciousness is perceiving from different perspectives and that we don't have the capacity to see right from here. We don't have the capacity to see all the perspectives that are available. And if we were able to see all the perspectives, then there would be absolutely no limitation. We could, jump from here to this little planet out here without any problem. And for instance, or liquefy granite and pour it into place and make these amazing temples, for instance, which is something that he's already doing, and not liquefying granite, but drawing what was it, carbon 232 out of tar sands from Utah that apparently shouldn't exist on this planet. Or it's basically liquid diamonds. It's a liquid carbon that can be poured. Pouring diamonds, the hardest element on the planet at the moment. It can be poured and formed, and he has this element is coming out of this process, which all has to do with putting in the proper frequencies. It's not about applying the physics that we knew. It's more about, as in heat and pressure and all of that's what forms diamonds. But there's a frequency that can be applied that can draw out these rarefied forms of carbon, and they act in completely different ways. So, there may be levels of consciousness that are available. And Jonathan, I see your hand up, but I did want to come into at one point talking more about Pentecost and going on from there. But what do you want to say,
I'm just
Jonathan?
going to quantum jump into this. Sorry that I missed, but I'll look at the recording. I just got back from the Easter dinner and
Welcome
they're
back.
still eating dessert, so I'm skipping dessert to come here. Anyway, what strikes, I just had heard a thing on Planck saying that the origins of matter come out of consciousness. So that is, I mean, it's what's the matter with matter, so to speak. And I like Nassim Haramehn's most recent essay, is that actually the materialist modality does not go deep enough. They only stop at the atom or at the small, the particles. But if you need to go way deep into matter, when you find that matter actually is essentially spirit based. So anyway,
Right.
yeah.
It's all
Thank you.
frequencies of harmonic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, just I'll listen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. The universe is truly coherent, utterly coherent, which is amazing. So, taking the idea that even resurrection is not the end of the story, that Pentecost is the real end of the story. So, from my recovering Catholics, can you please talk a little bit about Pentecost?
Well, that's the secret of the upper room. That is at the 5 weeks after the resurrection and after the ascension. Well, actually, before the ascension, they gathered apparently in the upper room, at which point they were touched by the Holy Spirit and spoke in tongues, and they were touched by fire, flames of fire. And it was kind of a group telepathy. That's the way we might want to look at it. Like, it's a spiritual psionics. And that they were overwhelmed by the unconscious in a way, but that was still communicative. And they were able to communicate mind on mind. And there was, again, the presence of the Holy Spirit. A total out, I guess it would have been a total out of body experience. Not necessarily near death experience, but it was totally embedded matter. Their minds were totally embedded with the flow of the spiritual.
And who are the
realm.
people that were feeling this, or
These were the disciples. These were
disciples.
they were hiding for fear because of after the crucifixion, but and then it was from that point then that they spread out. And I don't really know my church history that well, but that was a significant. The Pentecost is and of course we have Pentecostals who still try to embed, involve that, being open and being touched by the Spirit. So
just looking at this crop circle for a moment, which for me, this is the Pentecostal image that the center understands its involution, understands itself,
hmm
and it's also radiating, it's
hmm
emanating. And then these flames, these feel very flame-like, and
hmm
they're very wind-like and moving
hmm
like into each of the is an apostle the same thing as a disciple?
No, the apostles came later. The disciples were actually the first 12 or 11, 12 or 11, including
Okay.
Judas. The first, they were selected. The apostles came, like Paul was an apostle who came later.
So the apostles are the people that took the teaching out into the
Right.
public. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Apostolic. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. But what is striking me too about the first formation here is the sense of black hole, wormhole. There's something going on with a new dimensionality. I'm seeing that as I know there's a lot of talk about wormholes and tapping the 0 point energy, and I'm wondering if there's any metaphor
Mhm.
with this imagery in terms of that.
Hmm.
So I know Nassim has gone, as I said, I really like the way he's gone deep into that, saying that the materialist worldview has not gone deep enough into they need to get into the nature of matter and the matter of nature itself.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mm. Anyone else have a feeling about Pentecost?
I'm wondering how it ties in with the pentagram or the sense of five and
Yeah,
five.
yeah.
Yeah, there's that element of five in the quality of five, which is
Well,
something.
I've been reading, here's another part of the study that I've been doing lately is I've been reading Tom Bree's uh
Mhm.
exploration of the cathedral at Wells,
Wells, yeah,
which is
beautiful.
the Cosmos in Stone. And
hmm
so much of the cathedral imagery is about the it's really about the resurrection of
hmm
that the at the far end is the Lady Chapel that
hmm
is it's basically an expression of Venus. It's both five-sided and eight-sided. And the image of the of Venus as the morning star, as the
mm
rising sun, or as the rising morning star, is equated to the resurrection of Jesus,
hmm
of Christ.
hmm
And and so that has to do with the number five for certainly.
hmm
And
Yeah, yeah. I think this. I mean, it is a whole long process. Usually, it's just Easter and then Easter Sunday, but I actually Easter is beginning a whole new process of towards the Pentecost, towards and then the ascension, the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, and then actually the ascension into heaven when there's
when
the
is
image.
the ascension?
I don't know. I think it's shortly after uh, the Pentecost.
Oh yeah.
When Christ did the images, the apostles see him in a heavenly with the major prophets. I'll have to go back and check on that, but I know the ascension is.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that Mary's Ascension Day is July
Yeah.
22nd,
hmm hmm
which is
Yeah.
always a very interesting crop circle day.
hmm
Um,
So when I saw my first one was on the 2nd of July. I saw the
Second
oh
of
yeah,
July?
22nd,
22nd of July.
22nd of
Yeah.
July. It's when I saw the chakras at
Oh, wow.
yeah, that chakra of the 7 chakras
Hmm.
with John Michel.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Wow, that must have been lovely.
it was. Yeah, and John Mack was
I'd
down in
like
the field
to add,
at the
not
time.
with regard to the Pentecost, which I haven't come to in studies. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. Judith? Oh, now we can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay,
Now
now
we
we
can.
got.
Sorry, I had one. Oh dear. Okay, I'm sitting
Okay, we can
down,
hear you
stabilized.
now. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
So I too have only recently come to take an interest in studying this Christ being, and because I've been raised Jewish and simply haven't, kind of paid attention or looked deeply into who he was and is and what it's all about. But I come to it partly by way of Rudolf Steiner and having
Mm,
enormous respect and gratitude for Steiner's perceptions and work that he left us. Um, and so a colleague of his, Emil Boch, B-O-C-H, wrote a book called The 3 Years, which covers the time from his baptism to the crucifixion and ascension. And it's very interesting to read. And I've been reading it in the company of a couple of other people as a small study group, which, and also some of Steiner's lectures on Christ. And so it's opened up a very um, kind of immediate sense of this being, and also some super sensible um, insights into who he was and what he did and how he did what he did. So I can recommend that, although it's so much easier to have a few people with whom to read it aloud and then to talk about it and go into some kind a collective um, pursuing understanding, because it's so uh, mysterious and huge that it really requires some moving into. It's super sensory, as Steiner puts it, and so
Hmm.
it's by definition beyond where we normally are. So it's magnificent. Just wanted to say, and I look forward to the Pentecost, to studying and understanding more about the Pentecost, Marianne.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that sounds very rich. Yeah, yeah, what a wonderful study group.
Yeah, just three of us.
Beautiful, beautiful.
You might want to explore A Course in Miracles
Mhm. About Pentecost? How
about
so, Blythe?
Christ, about Christ altogether, as it was supposedly dictated by him. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it's pretty amazing.
as I really appreciate you bringing up Steiner. He really understands it in terms of the new image of God and all of that. It's Steiner's great with Christ in that story.
Yeah, and I think the next big shift, since we are on the threshold of whether we call it contact or disclosure or whatever, but suddenly there's going to be a phase change, as between water and gas, or ice and water. There's going to be a sudden upwelling. I mean, as there already is in terms of consciousness, studies all over the place, and as bolstered or as found the foundation of physics
Mm-hmm.
also shaking along with that. But suddenly, to actually have other beings from other planets with whole elevated ways of doing things and of being together. I mean, telepathy will be the common means of communication.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have a huge humanities shift, and I hope it doesn't have to come through a kind of a collective crucifixion, a kind of
Mm-hmm.
the the insane challenge of what we all know
Oh.
we could be subject to, but it's often what causes, that kind of sudden movement of
Mm-hmm.
consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I was in a conversation earlier this week where we were joking that we're going to be rediscovering the wheel through 0 point energy. That is, we're going to see a whole new reality, as you're saying there. The new physics is going to be this discovery of 0 point energy, and that actually we already have it. It's being covered because they've actually weaponized it with that MH370. They've actually disappeared a Boeing 737 with.
Mm.
It's an interesting story, and some of it makes quite sense that they've actually got the antigravitics And, Stephen Greer talks a bit about this and that it's being covered up, that we already have the
Yeah,
science to it.
the whole question of the weaponization of that which is holy
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
that's a very strong question and worthy of our intention
Mm.
of being able to counter that in some way with our consciousness to be able to truly know that those dark intentions may they be found to be of service towards the true resurrective light. If how to include all of that, it's so how to really have a respectful universe. This is another one of my
Mhm.
meditations lately, is I've been out in the garden, for instance. I've been doing a tremendous amount of gardening and it's amazing out there, and I have to kill off a certain species of weed. It's called, and I call it weed and weeds. And
Not the right kind of weeds.
right, no, yeah, not yeah, the kind that needs to be edited out of the garden in order for the garden to have its most beautiful expression. And that, the responsibility that I feel to actually be saying, no, you don't belong here. I am going to take you out. And how to do that in a way that feels like it's really serving the best possible outcome. And part of it is that, in the spring when these things are new, when everything is growing together and they're small and they haven't yet become thuggish, which is the term that's used in gardening. These plants can become thugs in the garden, which is an interesting
Aw.
thought. But I
Are you
know it's
talking about buttercups?
no, no, there's one that's a wild geranium, and there's a chickweed, and there's these very delicate, really, I mean, when they're young and beautiful, they're exquisite. And how everything is finding its beautiful expression in space, space filling with everything else at the beginning. Nothing's really competing. It's all this unbelievably like cosmic growth cycle that's going on in the spring. But then as things get a little older, then they start to like take over and they don't know how
Yeah,
to behave with each other anymore.
like vines on the roses.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah,
want to
it's
get vines
very
on the
it's
roses. Yeah.
and the responsibility that I feel to um to the expression of the garden having its most, it's really a conundrum for me. And what I try to do, here's one way that I try to come to peace with it, is that I give love and appreciation for the beauty that they have done. Like for instance, I let them grow for a certain amount of time in the spring and find their beautiful expression. And then at a certain point I go, okay, that's enough. And I am
Hmm.
willing to pull them out. So I try to give them love and attention and then do what I need to do.
And then
Duration.
and then you become compost and help in the
Yeah.
growth of the next.
Right,
Yeah.
right. To do
Yeah.
it in such a way that that I do it before it goes to seed, for
Hmm.
instance, before it finds, there are plenty of other places where it can go to seed and have expression and
So what is the duration of wholeness? There's a process. I mean, again, looking at the wholeness of things, but then there's as you say, there's a certain period of time that it's all manifesting, but then that comes to an end, and then you move into the next duration. So it's
right.
wholeness over time.
Right. Well, it's,
Yeah.
that perturbation that has to go through the system that is
Hmm.
stuck in certain patterns,
Hmm.
that certain things fall away and a new order
Hmm.
can emerge.
Hmm.
Um, it sounds like it
Hmm.
has something to do with that.
Yeah. And how will that, in terms of our national security, how will that be
Ooh.
involved?
There's a big question.
You know, that's why they're protecting all of this. To,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe when we go into our closing meditation, we can kind of bring an invocation that whatever it is that allows this to really truly serve our greater good.
Mhm.
Really the greater good, like the
For
really
humanity,
greater
yeah, the
good.
greater good for the whole shebang
I
Right.
think that
of humanity. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I'm gonna get off here. I'm
Whoops.
sorry, honey. I've been on too long.
What? Are you leaving, Colleen?
Yeah, I need to go. I've got something I have been putting off. So thank you for the thing, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for being
Colleen.
here. Yeah. Yeah. I want to actually, before everyone gets off, I want to see if you all are okay with my sharing this recording publicly.
I'm okay.
Would everyone be okay with that? Having your
Wow, on
image?
what platform?
Yeah.
Well, it would probably go onto YouTube. I might share it on my Facebook page and let people know that it's out there.
Intergalactically, go for it.
Yeah, spread the
You're
word.
okay with that, huh?
Okay.
You need to
Anybody
be,
object?
you will be apostolic.
Yay!
We all are. We all
Yeah,
are
Bye-bye.
holding a piece of this puzzle.
good.
Yeah. So these are the all the crop circles that we explored today. Here, I'll
Mm.
put them all on one page so we can see it a little bit.
So what is the message? Is there message in coming out of the imagery?
Yeah.
That's what I keep asking. To put the image into words?
Well, the message today is resurrection.
I
Mhm.
think we need to send them a message
Yeah. Mhm.
in gratitude and joy for their communicating with us
Yeah.
so lushly and with
Mhm.
outrageous depth and unknown delight of variety of forms. So I guess a resurrection into them and beyond, whoever they're trying to get into being, and
Mhm.
beyond that.
Mhm.
So, does anyone want to add anything else before we do a little closing?
Yeah, just a comment. Um, Maybe still unformed, but just when I think in terms of taking any action that's the best for humanity, um, I find myself wanting to be really careful about that anymore from the perspective that I feel there's an innate arrogance in it, that we might assume to know what is best for humanity, but if we consider how dumbed down we've been and how tampered with we've been possibly in our DNA, then I think maybe we're the least. I mean, are we the best to cast a vote, or should we really be endeavoring to become more human or remembering what humanity is before we even think about speaking for what might be best for us? Coming from perhaps a very handicapped place right now. So I just wanted to say that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that. The sense of the deeper the memory, perhaps the broader the vision. In other words, yeah, we need to get a deeper memory of humanity.
And
Again,
who we
yeah,
are,
yeah,
and who
who
we
we
are,
are.
from how
Mhm.
restrained we have been through our senses and through our
Mhm.
thinking and through what we've been taught.
Mhm.
And so, we've been very narrowed, and
Mhm.
an aperture so small is not the one, I think, in the best position to speak for
Yeah.
an audience.
You know,
Yeah.
in that
Yes.
sense, there's been an awful lot of stress now on consciousness, but I think
Yeah.
it's even more than just consciousness. I think it's the relationship of what we are conscious with and the relationship with the unconscious. It's the psyche or it's the soul relationship between consciousness and the unconscious. And I think it's that bridge between that dynamic, that living soul, so to speak, or that living dynamic between what we are aware of as well as what we are not aware of. What's moving, the unconscious is all around us. but
Yeah.
how does it manifest itself? How do we communicate, relate, connect with what is being given to us continually, what is manifesting out of the implicate order and manifesting in front of us in terms of synchronicities and that. And I think I really like Jung and Pauli's model in terms of the psychoid, where there's this blending of matter and spirit, and that, you know, on the atom, the atomic structures is what's the matter, but it's actually psyche and soul, which is the key element to you know, for the spiritual realm. And so, what is that relationship that has happening between consciousness and the unconsciousness, or the ur consciousness, or paleo, way back before ego, or it goes Jung's collective archetypal unconscious. How do we? And I think in that is, of course, sacred geometry. The part of the language is sacred geometrics. So, in golden ratio.
I really hear you, Marion, with that concern.
Mm-hmm.
And and it is a lot like, my concern of tending the garden.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's where I truly desire for it to be for the highest good, and I don't really know.
Yeah.
Is it right for me to be able to make those decisions of what can stay and what can go? And at the same time, I have to acknowledge and recognize that I'm integral,
Right.
and it's important for me to take responsibility at whatever level or scale that I am actually interacting.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
how do I organize my own inner being? What do I need to come back to that I can trust as much as I can, and also have discernment with as
Yeah.
much as I can to see what's my aim, what's my intention, that I can still
Well, that's
I need to not assume that I know.
where you'll
Not
get help.
assume that I know, but I also need to be willing to be in. It's like, Christ going through this whole thing. He was willing, to okay, this is what's happening. I'm gonna go through it. It's not what I would prefer, but this is what's happening. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna take responsibility for whatever my role is as much as I possibly can. And I don't really understand it, but I need to keep my aim
Yeah.
high.
Well, that's where your dreams will also give you information as to how to make
Yeah,
those
probably.
choices. That'll give you information and intelligence as to the
Yeah, but that also
pathway.
needs discernment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
But part of the discerning is part of that process of clarification
yeah.
and how you play with those.
So all of
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
the complexity and the variations and all of that, if you we breathe down into the heart and just go to the love place,
Mhm.
then everything settles, and it's agreed, and it's shared, and it's infallible. Steiner
Mhm.
talks about heart-warmed thinking, that
Yeah.
it's not one or the other, it's both
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
But I think that would be the place to move from always, and maybe a wonderful place to close from now.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do a little closing thing, a little closing focus. Allow yourselves to come back in to your own center, knowing that you are an integral part of the entire cosmos, of everything. You both matter and are a tiny speck. And yet, as a source of emanation, we are integrated into the whole. And it's important for us to both surrender and take responsibility. And as we breathe, we receive, and we emanate gratitude for this incredible phenomenon. From the crop circles, of the story, the ancient stories, the beautiful unfolding narratives that we continue to interact with, and the writing of the new tale that we are involved with. Taking a breath, allowing that to also unfold within our psyches, within our whole beings. May it be reorganized into greater and greater exquisite, coherent clarity for the highest good of the entire cosmos. Three nice, easy breaths. And with a little, maybe an om together. Om.
Aho.
So be it. And so
Thank
it is.
you.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you
Thank you
all.
for coming.
That was beautiful.
Yay.
Do you
The
have
crop circle interface
do you
has
have the
been
next one?
resurrected.
Do you have the next one scheduled yet? Do you know?
It will be on the third Sunday of the month, more than
Third
likely.
Sunday of the month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Aho.
Pretty
Blessings.
well. Thank you all.
Bye all. Lovely to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye.